folks, welcome back. We're doing another reel tutorial. The reason why I do these antique fishing reel tutorials is to give you a little bit of history on maybe some of these reels that you might have laying around that might have belonged to your grandfather, much like this reel did. This was my grandfather's old Zebco 33. Now this is, they made a lot of different years and series of these reels. This is the very first Zebco 33 with the Lexicon body. And how you can tell this is the very first Zebco 33 reel is that it had the very first graphite body Lexicon like plastic body reel that was ever made. This was the very first one. You could tell, usually you could tell it's sort of like a buyer's guide. If you got a really old one like from the 50s, it would be a steel body like chrome on the center and black covers if it's from the 50s, late 50s. Early 60s, then they started making the chrome and steel bodies with brass gears. This one doesn't have brass gears. This one was made from like 1973 to 1976, and then they came with the highlight edition, which you could tell the 1976 ones had the neon, basically what they called the neon 33 from 1976, 77. They made them all the way into 1980. They also made the Omega series in the late 70s and early 80s, and then they stopped making them. But this is a classic Zebco 33. How you can tell, this is the first generation of Lexicon body reel, plastic body reels. Is usually they had two rivets staggered side by side, and they had the Lexicon body. They had the teardrop anti-reverse switch, and these little holes cut out in the grooves right here, and the drag mechanism right here, and the bait clicker right here. What the bait clicker does on these old reels is it makes a clicking noise for a bait runner, and then you click the anti-reverse switch and it makes it go like that. But this is the very first plastic body Zebco 33 they ever made, and it was made from 1973 to 76, I believe. Don't hold me to it, but that's when they started first making these Lexicon body reels, which are, these are the ones that are highly sought after for collectors in a box. But I don't have a box, but we're gonna take this apart, show you how to take it apart, and some methods into cleaning the very first generation of plastic body Zebco 33 reels. Also too, when they started making these, they made these in Brunswick, New Jersey. They shipped their production from Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma to Brunswick, New Jersey, and that's when they started making these Lexicon body reels, which are not bad reels, and they were originally spooled with DuPont 10-pound test strand. So really good reels, quality reels, and this one here is almost 50 years old and it's still in working condition. It's a little rough, I need to clean it, but once I show you how to take it apart and clean it, it should be a no-brainer. Very simple process to clean it. Two things that you'll need for this job is a penny, small penny, toothbrush, and maybe a wire brush, and a tub of some sort to put the parts in to clean it. Some WD-40 or maybe a reel cleaner of some sort, and maybe some Fantastic. If you don't have those, you could use Fantastic and spray the gears down and clean them off. And you'll need a small wrench, size 8 wrench, to take this handle off, size 8 wrench, or you could use a pair of needle nose pliers, however you want to do it. First thing you want to do is to try to take down the drag as far as it'll go, which this is a wide range drag, not a SLD drag. The SLD drags, which is called a straight line drag, was in the later models from the 1980s with a little drag knob right there, which would raise and lower a bunch of washers underneath the spool. This one has a wide range drag system, much like a lot of the older ones do. You take the penny and you loosen up the frame screw. Once you do that, you take off the front cover, and once you do that, you could take this off right here, the cover off here, And you will need a small screwdriver to do this, and wear a adjustable, another thing too you might want to check on these reels is to see if the spools are broken or, you know, messed up really bad. If they're messed up really bad, finding spare parts for these reels are almost impossible. We're going to clean the spool too because it looks a little corroded. The best thing to do with this is to unscrew it just a little bit. You don't need to unscrew it all the way. Push this spool holder out of the way. Pinion gear's on top, and the spool should just come right out once you lower the wide range drag system. The wide range drag system's right here, so once you clean the body of the reel, you can take a small toothbrush, you know, and put some WD-40 in there, clean all that old grease out, take a rag and wipe all the excess grease out. The next thing you want to do is take off the back cover. Do that now, and you take the handle crank off with a size 8 wrench. Once it's loosened to a point, this one here is a little rough. That's the reason why we're going to clean it, because I don't think it's been cleaned in a long time. Take off the handle. Sometimes the handles are a little hard to get off. If that's the case, you could hold this like this and take the wrench and hit the top of that screw until the handle comes out. It has the classic teardrop handle of the Zebco 33. Now, this is the line brake mechanism right here. As you can see, there's these two little bars right here that hold it into place. There's a spring in the pinion gear right here. You push this off to the side like that, and it just comes right out. Really easy. It'll drop from the bottom. Now, a lot of these older reels have these are loose, they come off, I guess because the dry rot or the glue just gets old. This one has that problem. But if you have that problem where this little rubber piece comes out, you could either get a replacement, or you can remove it and then clean it off with alcohol. And once you clean it off, the rubber piece and the metal piece with alcohol, you could take some rubber cement or super glue and re-glue that back in there. But when you do that, when you glue it back in there like that, you want to set it on something flat, like a bed or something like this. And once you glue it in there, you can put like a small wrench on it like that overnight and let it sit. If you're using epoxy or rubber cement, the weight of, you add some extra weight to it, and it helps lock that glue into that rubber brake right there. But we're not going to have to do that. We'll just clean it off with some alcohol later on down the road. Now that we gotten to that point with the reel, now you can remove the pinion gear very slowly. This is the spring right here of the pinion gear, and right here is the gear mechanism itself. It should come out, but I'm going to need a pair of pliers to do it. Or you can take a flathead screwdriver and just like gently work it out if you can. Sometimes you got to wiggle it out of there and come out. In theory, I usually like using a pair of pliers. There's the pinion gear, center pinion gear, and there's a little washer that you do not want to lose. This is the washer that goes underneath the pinion gear when it goes back into place. That has to be cleaned as well. Now if you want to remove this gear out of the way, this main wheel gear, it should come out nice. You just want to move the bait clicker out of the way and push it down over the bait clicker like so, and the gear should just come right out. It should come out with some, you know, some minor coaxing. Once you get this out, that's pretty much all you need to remove from this reel to clean it. Now the body will need to be cleaned. I'm going to spray it all down with WD-40. These parts here, the body of the reel, I'm going to take the pinion gear, clean it off. I'm going to take this and clean it off. I'm going to spray these down with WD-40 or 409 and clean those off. The spool needs to be cleaned, and I'm going to do a cleaning job on the spinner cone itself. All you got to do is spray it with some WD-40, take a toothbrush and just toothbrush it out, clean it out, and then re-grease it and reapply grease to it and put it back on the reel. And the body of the reel, you may need to get a couple Q-tips to push it through the holes right here and right through this hole here, and take a Q-tip and just clean up any excess stuff. And we're going to clean the reel, and we're going to tighten this screw up so it doesn't fall out, because you really don't need to remove this spool holder. Really, it holds the spool in place. You don't need to remove that. We're going to clean it, and we'll get back to you when we're done. Okay folks, we got all the parts taken apart and cleaned. The body's clean, everything's pretty much clean on this reel. Now all that's left to do is to re-grease and oil this reel. The grease that we're going to be using is from our good old friends from Hillbilly Snot, from OzarkClassicReels.com Facebook. We'll put the link in the description for this stuff. I love this stuff. We're going to use it to put this reel together. They got some fine products, great customer service. They'll do you right when you go to order this or any vintage classic reel on their Facebook page. You could order from them directly and get yourself a nice reel. First thing we're going to do is we're going to re-lube the parts that need to be re-lubed with grease. This is their version of grease. You can mix it up with your finger a little bit, get it nice and mixed up in there. And I use my finger. I'm not pretty particular about what I do here. Grab a little bit of that grease, this real grease that is their own formula, and we're going to re-grease. I think we got too much here. We're going to re-grease the pinion gear and stick a little bit of grease on the pinion gear here. Fill up the gear wheel here, lid of the grease. Take some of that oil and pull it out. And just drip a little bit of the oil on that gear wheel. That's really all that needs to be done. And we're going to re-grease this and oil the back of that wheel gear. Now, I did clean these gears with a wire brush. This gear here and this gear here with a wire brush. That's all it really needs. And basically, this is all that needs grease right here, pretty much. A little bit more. Just need a little bit of grease on the wheel gear here. And that's all we're going to do. I'll place it in this little lid here with the pinion gear. Put a little bit of oil on the back of the wheel gear itself. That's all it really needs, is to be oiled. We're going to grease this here with the excess grease on my hand here on this brake, line brake, and pinion gear rod. Put a little bit on there. Put a little bit of the grease on the bottom of the spool here. A little bit more grease. Just a little bit, you know what I mean? And just put a little bit of grease here on the bottom here. And in the center of that, some grease. And right here, we're going to open up the this wide range drag here, and we're going to drip some oil in it right here, because we clean the whole body with a toothbrush. We're going to put a little bit of oil in here as well in the wide range drag right here, and put a little bit of grease in this hole here. You can get enough grease in there to begin with. Grease, put a little bit of oil right here on the drag knob, and the anti-reverse switch right here, and a little bar that goes along that, and right here on the anti-reverse clicker. And you just rub it in there with your finger and stuff like that. Put a little bit of grease on the screw itself on the drag, just a little bit. You don't need much. A little bit goes a long way with this reel, I'll tell you. Now we're going to replace, the first thing we're going to replace is the gear wheel. It's the first thing that goes in. Is the last thing that comes out, which is the gear wheel. We're going to rub that oil on there a little bit. You don't need grease on the back of that wheel gear. Now to put the wheel gear back into place, try to show you. You put it through the hole, put it through the body of the reel like so, and it should go in the hole. And you have to lift up the anti-reverse switch in order to get that gear back in there, and have that anti-reverse switch come back over like that. Now once you got the wheel gear in place, which is the main part, is the first thing you put in, is what the last thing you take out. You take this little washer, put it on top of the pinion gear itself like so, and then you plant that pinion gear right back in the center of the reel. Sometimes it takes a little bit of coaxing. You may have to move the gear around a little bit in order. Sometimes you gotta, get it in there and coax it in there. There goes the pinion gear, goes in there nice and easy. Once you get that in there, you're pretty much done from here. Now once we got the pinion gear in there, we're going to put the spring back on the basically the line brake mechanism and rod, and hold. You got to hold with one finger the pinion gear with one finger, and then you put the line brake mechanism back in the reel like so. It goes in there like that through those two little slots. Once you do that, you can let go of the center gear. Now you want to put the spring and the little mechanism back in here that holds the drag bar into place. What I like to do is I like to work one end in the drag bar and the other end. Sometimes it's good to use a tool like maybe a wrench or a screwdriver or something like that, a wrench, to push that other arm out, get that little sleeve back in there. Now when you put this back in, you gotta make sure the drag mechanism, the little bar right here, is facing outwards instead of inwards. If you got it on the wrong way, the line brake and the reeling it in won't work right. So make sure it looks like that. This end right here is facing away from the wheel gear, and you're good to go. Okay, at this point, you can put the back of the you can put the button back onto the reel like so, and twist it. Once that's on there, the outside, the little drag bar right here won't fall out or anything weird like that. Now, in order to get the spool back on this, we're going to have to basically close the wide range drag into the loosest position. Grab a little bit of that grease and just go around the center right here and just put a little bit of grease on the inside right here of the body of the reel so it has something to glide over. Now it could be kind of good enough. Now we're going to reassemble the spool. Now this right here has to be in the center of the reel, which holds the spool down. You can loosen that up with a small screwdriver like so. Loosens up, that way you can push it back over the reel. With the drag is on its loosest setting, you can put the spool back in place, push that over the spool like so, and then screw it in tight, which will hold the spool in place. You gotta make sure it's not too far over the spool, because if it does, it will screw with the spinner cone. Now we're going to do one more last thing. We're going to re-grease the spinner cone here. We're going to take a little bit of this grease and just go lightly coat it right here on the spinner cone itself, on the spring and the pickup pin right here. And once you do that, you can take a drop of oil and just drop it right there on top of it, and the oil will coat that as well. And that's basically all the lubrication you need to do to that. Wipe up any excess lubrication that doesn't need to be on there, and there you go. Once you do that, you can take the spinner cone and gently put it back on there, just a little bit. You gotta put the handle back on. Once you put the handle back on, you put the nut back into the handle crank, and there you go. Tighten it down. Don't want to make it too tight. Tighten it down. Once you do that, you hold the handle crank like that and tighten up that spinner cone. Don't want to do it too tight. It'll strip out the spinner cone screw, and then you'll be screwed, literally. Just wipe off any excess grease or oil or anything like that that doesn't necessarily need to be there. Check the reel for functionality. It's running a lot better than it did before. Yeah, it's definitely a lot smoother being cleaned. There you go. Put on the front spinner cone right here. The holes have to line up. These little notches have to line up with the indentions on the frame. You put it right there like so, and the body should go on the reel with some coaxing. You twist it on there, and once you twist it on there, you take a penny and you tighten up that lock screw on the frame. You don't want to tighten it up too much. It'll strip the screw or possibly mess up your reel, and there you go. It's definitely running a lot better than it did before. Now, if you got any squeaks in these handle cranks, you could just put a drop of oil in each one of these little handle crank holes. Just a drop will do on both ends, and then work that oil in there like that, and should get out any of the unnecessary squeaking noise in the reel. And there you go, folks. That is a fully serviced 1973, the very first edition Lexicon body, graphite body style of Zebco 33. Up to this point, they were being made out of steel bodies, so this was really the very first Zebco 33 with a Lexicon body, which is sort of a graphite type of material. And how you can tell it's the very first edition of a Zebco 33 with a Lexicon body, it will say Zebco and just 33. The older models, like the 60s and 50s models, will say spinning reel 33, Zebco 33 on them. So this one's a 73 to 76. Anything that was made in 77 to 78, 79 to 1982, those last year they made the center brake systems, will have one rivet. This is a 2 rivet original Zebco 33 from the 70s. That was the very first Lexicon or / graphite body reels that Zebco ever made. So, and the line capacity you want to use on these are 6, 8 to 10. 12-pound test and 14-pound test would be pushing it with this reel. With 10-pound test, you get about 100 yards of line. 8-pound test, you get about 125. And with 6-pound test, you can get up to 150 yards of line. Either of those lines will work really well with this reel. 6, 8, and 10-pound tests are like the best type of lines you want to use for this reel. Okay, folks, if you like this video on some history of the first Zebco 33 with the Lexicon plastic body, when they first started making plastic bodies on a Zebco 33 reel, was in 1973. If y'all like this video, please smash the like, share, and subscribe this video, and tell me what you think in the comments. And y'all know what you can do. You put God first, He puts you first, and you know what else, YouTube? God loves you, so does Hondo. Peace out, YouTube.
Maybach music. Can anybody out there hear me? Hear me?